Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Overarching and this is Devador number 31 for Victoria 3. This one is about journal entries, one that I have waited for such a long time because there's just so much behind this concept and there is so much different within this concept even if it isn't directly apparent because, hey, we got events, we got decisions, we got quest lines basically, I mean, in CK3, right? We have that sort of stuff, but it's all over the place. These are all different iteration levels. Let me just basically phrase it in this way. Most people that I think play grand strategy games will have no idea that there was this really long time span where we did not have decisions. Decisions were not a thing. If you played Hearts of Iron 2 and you played Germany and you went for France and you wanted the Vichy France event, you needed to know what exactly triggers it and then trigger it. There was no way of clicking the button of, yeah, look at that, I want to install a puppet there or I want to annex it all, right? No, you only had very hyper-specific circumstances. I think the first game that I played that actually had decisions was Darkest Hour. Or maybe I got the timeline wrong. Darkest Hour was before Victoria 2, is this true? Either way, they definitely had decisions and it was revolutionizing for the Hearts of Iron series. I think it made a huge difference right there and I very much appreciated that. Now today, we have events, we have decisions, we have disasters, EU4, right? We have research projects like in Stellaris. We have all that stuff, and it's sort of all over the place. Many work well, many do exactly their purpose, but there isn't a unified place. It's not a unified mechanic with that. It's just very versatile. These are all individual mechanics. CK3 does it as well, of course. There are decisions, there are, for example, events. I will go through this dev diary today, and I promise you that you will come out the end of this dev diary and say, holy moly, why don't we have this in CK3, EU4, Stellaris, Hearts of Iron 4, and so on, okay? I think we can all be on the same page. Even Imperator Rome, of course, Imperator Rome sort of went into this direction as well, because they had focus trees. They basically had quest trees that you can start and that are randomly generated, so function in a similar way, but were not as directed or as well directed as these are. I love the Imperator Rome system. They really have a good idea there, but I think the journal entry system could have carried it further. Let's jump into it and explore what it is. My name is Daniel. I believe this is Daniel Tollmann, who has done many of the ARs, the Vatican AR, the Canada AR, and so on, and I'm the content design lead for the project. Today we'll be taking a first look at journal entries. Upon the death of King William IV, the personal union between Great Britain and Hanover ended due to Why can't I talk today? Ended due to different laws of succession. Queen Victoria ascended the British throne, while Hanover was ruled by William's brother Ernst August. This journal entry highlights the imminent end of the union, the Hanoverian Succession. So this is a journal entry. What you can see here is that it might remind you of, for example, EU4 saying, hey, just so you know, buddy, you have a disaster looming. That is EU4 basically. What it might remind you of is also EU4's Burgundian inheritance, except this one is much more visible and clearer because it is directly declared, hey, by the way, when William of Hanover dies, then you're kind of screwed because this will happen. I don't know, and they don't show it here. Maybe you can't stop the succession event because that is mandatory, so otherwise Germany will just be a mess if you were able to change the succession law, for example, and Prussia would have to go through you to get Germany unified. That would, of course, be quite radical. But basically, we're looking at a situation where this isn't just a situation that will happen. This is permanently tracked, and this is a huge bonus for the system. There will be, at least from the looks of it, a central place where you can track what is going on, what could be going on, and what has been going on, so what has finished, right? And all of that makes it into a unified and better event and decision system. We're going to see that in a bit as well. Compared to Victoria 2, we have shifted the focus of scripted content away from random event pop-ups and towards the journal system. Journal entries fulfill a variety of narrative and mechanical purposes in Victoria 3. They can be optional goals the player can pursue, imminent disasters, anchors for ongoing situations, and much more. You can think of the journal as items on the government's agenda, situations that you can engage with or not, to whatever extent best fits your goals and situation. We're going to see various journal examples here, and I will give you various examples of why it's superior to what we have in the other games. In 1836, Canada was administered by several colonial governments, including Upper Canada, modern Ontario, Lower Canada, modern Quebec, and the Hudson's Bay Company. By the end of our period, they were consolidated into a single Canadian nation. You can see it right here. These are potential journal entries, so they don't exist, they're not active, but they could be. And you can see they will be active, they will activate if Confederate Canada has researched nationalism technology. if completed, triggers the event Canadian Confederation. There isn't an abandoned one here, but you will see it down here if time runs out. That is something that you can do with these. These are timed quests, these are timeless quests, these are gated quests, these are open quests, these are flexible quests that can be done by Britain, that can be done by Canada. We know this because Daniel Tollmann did it in the AAR. He basically used this mechanic to do the unification, but as Canada, and it can be done by anybody else that holds Canada. This is an insanely versatile method of showcasing what could be a goal. It's not mandatory, it's potential, right? And making it so that you can get it even if you're Russia and you hold, for example, British Columbia in your possession. This is a big change, but now think this through. CK3, freshest game they made, at least at this time, right? CK3 has decisions, for example, such as the insanely important decision that nobody's ever taken unless they are a player: reunify the Holy Roman Empire, or found the Holy Roman Empire in 867. You need, for example, Germany, you need Italy, you need to have the Pope and their approval, you need, I don't think you actually need Italy, I think you need 3 kingdom titles including Germany. Why does that suck in comparison to journal entries? If I click Confederate Canada, you can see it right here, there may be mini goals that I can do. We're going to get through to this, don't worry, we're going to get to these mini goals right here, we're going to take a look at them, but there may be mini goals that guide me into this way. There may be specific mechanics, like for example in CK3, specific casus belli, specific character modifiers, specific interactions, specific pilgrimages, etc, 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 that could be gated behind a journal system. Instead, in CK3, we have the end goal. The end goal of this journal entry is Confederate Canada, and the end goal, or Confederate Canada, and the end goal of the decision Holy Roman Empire is to found the Holy Roman Empire, except there's no flavor, no guidance, no encouragement, nothing to engage with that is special, that is specific within the Holy Roman Empire decision. You just click the button, you get one event, you have become the Holy Roman Empire. This event are basically decision-based event quest lines that are permanently tracked, that you can see, where you can have progress, where you can fail, all that sort of stuff. These are modern quests, very well implemented because they are flexible. The CK3, the Stellaris, the Alpha 4, the Imperator Rome decision and event system is complete, garbage compared to this. When we were talking about flags, I was legit saying, with what we've seen of the Royal Court editor, the Coat of Arms editor, I am not very impressed by the Victoria 3 flag design. It is cool, it can do a lot, right? But in comparison, when I look at what Matthew Clohessy has done for CK3 there, it can't hold the water there. Potential journal entries, and I love many of the events, many of the decisions in CK3, but potential journal entries and journal entries themselves are so much further superior, such a big evolution. CK3, you just got dunked on. I gotta tell you just got dunked on. This system is a revolution in how you can approach content, in how you can deliver it. Instead of having not strung together events, you would have these decisions where you have minor goals and so on and so forth, and founding the HRE, and founding the Carolingian Empire, and founding Outremer. All that sort of stuff isn't in CK3. This would be cool. Again, that was just a tangent to show you why I think this is a big step, and why I'm very happy that we finally have this dev diary, because man, it is what I was hoping for. Here we can see some potential entries in the British Journal. Inactive journal entries serve to announce potential goals you might want to pursue, or disasters you might want to avoid. As you can see right here, both decisions and disasters, so EU4 has them split, they're in different places. Sometimes some decisions aren't even in the decision window, they are instead, for example, become the Defender of the Faith, they are in a very specific window somewhere else. Here, everything is unified. Really good. Many journal entries have an effect upon activation, usually in an event presenting the situation to the player both narratively and mechanically, and sometimes offering different approaches to the issue. Again, check out, think about CK3, think about Stellaris, think about any game with decisions. Click on something after you have everything achieved. That is how you do the decision. That's it. That's all the extent of flavor you're gonna get. In this game, nope. Hey, here's the entry events. I see you have an interest in becoming a socialist dictatorship, right? What do you need to do? Get the workers to be angry. Could be a looming disaster. I might want to stop it so that it times out, or I might want to make the workers even more angry. All of a sudden, we have a sort of a guided process in which you can positively affect your country collapsing. Think back to Victoria 2. If I think back to CK3, if I want to have my country collapse, I need to fail, like just be really bad, basically, right? In CK3, you know, don't really have this guided experience. This is super cool. the opportunities, not just in the game and not just for the player of this game, but also for mods, are manifold. Now let's take a look at how this actually works. To begin this process, so this would be Canada, you'll need to research nationalism, you have it right here. But there are also hidden triggers that determine whether this should appear in your journal as a possibility at all. In this case, the journal entry is potentially available for any country that has Canadian subjects. You can see how versatile it is. Instead of you needing to be Great Britain or it being tag bound, instead you have this, hey, look at that, this region, something could happen here. You could basically have this entire colonial region subjugated to you, and then you get this event, and while you do it, you have this sort of keeping track of something, right? I love that. That is really, really good. There can be so much flavor, there can be so many mechanics tied to it. Again, different diplomatic play costs, different diplomatic plays that are only available in very specific situations. Good stuff, really good stuff, seriously. In this case, the journal entry is potentially available for any country, right, that has subjects, but available to any country that fits the bill. This is reflective of our goals for historical content in Victoria 3. We want to avoid arbitrary historical events that occur for specific countries, even when they don't make sense in relation to what's happening in the game. We also want to avoid writing content that only happens for particular state actors under hyper-specific conditions, making it all but invisible. So historical content should be both emergent and visible to the greatest extent possible. This is the best railroading they could have done. You're not locked in, you don't just, oh, these are the numbers that are gonna get me into trouble here, right? I need to like be exactly over this or I'm gonna get this disaster. No, instead, you will be looking at, hey, look at that. This disaster's come in 20 years. Why don't you just, try to go through with the following? Let's check it out, because this is exactly what this is. The Ottoman Empire was in a period of steep decline by 1836. Despite attempts to modernize the country, it was not able to retain its dominance and fell to the wayside of history, eventually collapsing to nationalist movements and the machinations of the great powers. In Victoria 3, you have the opportunity to steer history in a different direction. How would an Ottoman resurgence affect the world? So, first of all, I like this. What can we see here? Special building, the Hagia Sophia. We can see barracks, I think? I don't see a government administration. This looks like a manufacturing sort of thing, and maybe these are like academies or something. I don't see the urban center actually looking at it. But you can see there are a lot of pops living in this. That is why there are so many houses. And then we can see the following. The sick man of Europe is the overreaching, the overall active journal entry. You can see we have fulfilled half of them. This is because Tanzimat urbanization, I would guess at least, might be finished. Tanzimat army modernization also appears to be finished. Or maybe it's the one, honestly, the interface is probably work in progress. I don't know why this would say 100% and it's not filled up. Who knows? Anyway, Tanzimat education reform and Tanzimat suppressed separatism. Tanzimat, not sure how you pronounce it, but that is basically the reformism started in, I believe, 1839 in an attempt to save the Ottoman Empire, its structures, and its continued existence. Now, let's take a look at the overarching journal entry. So these are basically individual missions that you can fulfill, and if you do, you get this. Let's take a look at it. Will complete if complete 4 Tanzimat journal entries. Then you will no longer be the sick man of Europe, or you will at the very least just be the sick man of Europe. It will time out in 20 years. You need to hurry. In 20 years, you are either done or you are done. If it's completed, it will trigger the event Tanzimat, the reorganization, telling you, hey, you did a good job getting at least into the next century. If time runs out, triggers the event the dead man of Europe. I assume basically leading to the collapse of your nation, which you then, and this could lead us directly into a different journal entry, which you could then approach with a different journal entry. Let's say, for example, recovering from the setback. Let's say you have everywhere, you have revolutions now because everybody's upset, you can't keep your realm together. That is the way the Ottomans, of course, went through the early 20th century. And you can still recover from that, right? So if they just look at the new situation and say, oh, they have the modifier, the dead man of Europe, right? You could then have a journal entry that says, trying to recover what you can. You might come out very weak, but you will come out as a different nation, and that is storytelling. The storytelling is huge here. This potential is massive. Seriously, I'm a big fan of these quest journal entries. This is really good stuff. Very different. Yet again, in EU4 you could have a disaster and then you have very specific conditions. If you get rid of one of them, then you're good to go. If you look at CK3, at Stellaris, at any game that has decisions, you do things independently on your own until you get to click that decision button. In this one, it's all guided by saying, hey, look at that, you are in trouble. Your administration is in deep, deep trouble. Let's talk about the Civil War, the American Civil War, for example. Maybe they just have a system that says, okay, if you have a very deeply an economic region, right, that is deeply driven by slavery, and you want to outlaw it, maybe there is a journal entry behind it. Maybe laws in general are accompanied by journal entries. Hey, you want to pass universal suffrage? Well, look at that. All of a sudden, we're looking at you having to pass certain things, you know, like having certain interest groups in power, going into certain directions. Who knows what, right? I'm coming up with this off the top of my dome piece, right? But what I'm saying is that all of this stuff can guide you towards decisions and disasters in a much more proactive way. Your empire can be falling apart, and you can play an active role rather than, like in most other games, just waiting and being bad, right? This is the right direction if you want to be able to simulate both historical stuff, but also downfall and rise of empires. They've never done. Grand Strategy struggles a lot with capturing downfall because it basically means that you are playing against yourself at that point. Downfall commonly is associated with you failing. In this case, it could mean that you say the dead man of Europe. I am not interested in Syria. I want to see how society develops, for example, if all of my colonies declare independence and I need to run Turkey as Turkey and in 1840, right? Or well, it would be 1856, I guess. So, but you know what I mean, right? This is a change to how downfalls will feel, and I'm a huge fan for it. So we certainly do have nation-specific content, so it's not just generic and region-oriented. No, there is specific content that can be triggered. Progress bars can track completion or failure of journal entries based on specific variables. Journal entries can also have a timeout, which might have an effect when it expires, in this case, a very negative consequence for failing to reform the country. In other journal entries, we use timeouts to create limited opportunities you can take advantage of if you're willing to commit to a goal. Additionally, there are also pulses that can be added to journal entries that have effects on a monthly, weekly, or yearly basis, and we can use these to, for example, measure that a set of objectives has been true for a certain amount of time. All of this is entirely written in our scripting language and is therefore extremely moddable. I am mad, believe it or not, that we don't have this tool in CK3. Actual quest systems in CK3 would be outstanding. It would be amazing. You could do so much with that. Changing your succession law? Oh, okay. Why don't you fulfill certain requirements rather than just do your powerful vassals agree? Do you have the tech? Why aren't you forced to roleplay? Why aren't you forced to synergize both with your character's stats, your character's character, and with the people around you? Rather than just send gifts so that they have a positive opinion of you and then agree, right? This stuff would be awesome in CK3. I hope that the CK3 team, you know, obviously internally, I know for a fact that they talk, you know, they go on, of course, that is how it is. They exchange information, how they approach things. I hope they're listening, because this is the system of event and decision content delivery, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, right, of the future. This is the step, much like decisions were the step after events, right? This is where we're at. I can't wait for this to be something that is actually in our hands and something that hopefully makes it into different games as well. Where were we? Following the end of the Sakoku era and shogunate rule, Japan modernized rapidly. A major transformation of society and the economy proceeded, and the great powers watched with interest. Will you be able to guide Japan towards a prosperous future, striking the balance between modernization and sovereignty? American military consultants event in Kanto, taking interest in Japan's modernization efforts. United States of America offered... there was a joke about Pokemon in this, but you know what, let's skip it. Has offered us the service of General Zachary Taylor as a military consultant. The terms of this arrangement appear favorable, but we should be wary of indebting ourselves to foreign powers. I wonder what the indebting means. Could this trigger a different journal for Japan, for example, that says, hey, wait a minute, you're too indebted to foreign powers. I don't know, your old ruling class will get upset, might rebel. Or maybe somebody can just vassalize you and you can't resist, right? That could be a journal. I, as America, if I open Japan up, if I come knocking and say, hey, I'm Commodore Moripari, please open up the country, I want to shop, I could trigger a journal entry in Japan that then needs to deal with modernization. Otherwise, that journal entry might get triggered if Japan advances on their own. There are so many possibilities to keep track of content and to interweave countries into content. I can't wait. This, sir, is a Gatling gun, 200 rounds per minute. There's nothing, neither man nor beast nor machine, that can withstand the hellish cacophony of ammunition that this device can unleash. We'll teach your soldiers to operate such machines, to maintain modern military discipline, and to obey their superiors without question. I have seen this. I've read this. And I'm not sure what events it would do. We know for a fact that if Japan gets ammunition and small arms from the US, they're not able to use them as Gatling guns until they have the tech Gatling gun. Maybe this is some form of tech sharing, tech spreading, right? Who knows? We welcome American assistance and we do not want their poison chalice. There is a named person here, so I have to assume Zachary Taylor would be a named general. Couldn't you theoretically have like legit just a foreign influence counter for IG Cloud? If Zachary Taylor comes and American influence, American cloud rises, they could force their way into government or rebel. Oh my god, there's so much potentially. I don't think they're doing it, right? IGs are the same IGs, they're everywhere, just with different names, that sort of stuff, like bourgeoisie, etc., etc. But I'm just thinking, couldn't you emulate the influence I have over a different country by virtue of me sending a general, that general becoming an IG leader, and then if that IG gets too large, you know, maybe a journal entry triggers that says vassalization is nearing. There's so much potentially. Seriously, this is what I'm talking about. This is the good stuff. While a journal entry is active, various events might occur in your nation. Here, for instance, a modernizing Japan considers an offer of American military consultancy. Active journal entries might also unlock decisions, one-time actions a country can opt to take, or have a multitude of effects and modifiers while they remain in play. The Great Molasses Flood of 1919 saw the city of Boston inundated with treacle, honestly, words, I don't know, due to a burst storage tank. Investing in the safety of your industries is important if you wish to avoid such accidents becoming commonplace. This is in North Carolina, the Great Molasses Flood, and the time remaining is 90 days. You need to deal with it, or maybe, actually, I think this is just the effect, right, of an event. So you have a journal, that journal can trigger events, meaning it's all a well-rounded experience, rather than, here's a random event, and there's a random event. Oh, here's -1 stability because of this comet. Instead, we could have a journal entry of tracking comets, of tracking star systems, who knows, you know, that sort of stuff. I am in love with the system. I gotta tell you, it's just, this feels to me like the first time I saw events in Darkest Hour, decisions in Darkest Hour. It's such a different gameplay experience, and this promises to be the very same thing. On the topic of events, there are now extremely few pop-up events that immediately demand the player's attention. Very good. I think those are obviously unique content delivery, but they are primarily annoying, especially if you're in multiplayer, for example. This is very different. Events now appear both in the outliner and on the map itself and can be opened and minimized at your convenience. Journal entries are a dynamic and versatile system used to represent a wide variety of era-inspired situations and historical content, and to make the game world feel narratively alive. The possibilities for this system are practically limitless, and I expect we'll continue to innovate with it for a long time to come. And with its incredible degree of modability, I look forward to seeing the community's own creations as well. Next month is all about colonization and exploration. Next month is going to be a treasure trove, don't get me wrong. But I have to tell you, right here, right now, this was an incredible dev diary for me. Because this is the first time in ages that we see a genuine unified system innovation on decisions, on events, on focus trees, on quest trees, on generated quest trees, on generated content, on guaranteed content, on randomly triggered content. This is good stuff. Thank you, Daniel Tollman. Thank you, everybody that works on it. I can't wait to test that stuff out and to see what modders do with it. This genuinely seems like one of the best, somewhat boring changes, because this, you know, this isn't funny, this isn't exciting, but this is the best change that makes me so mad because CK3 doesn't have it. Let me know what you think. I am very excited for it, and I will see you later, alligator.